today we're going to talk about the sheepshank. The sheepshank is a way to shorten a piece of rope. So if you just have too much slack and you'd like to remove some of that, depending on the circumstances under which you're using it, it could be an option. It's not really my favorite choice just because it's not necessarily the most secure knot. There are other ways to take up some slack out of a rope. You could tie a alpine butterfly, for example. It has a large loop, and then you could just tie that excess loop off to one of the ends. It is a more secure knot, but there are times when the sheepshank might be useful for what you're doing. So let's take a look here and see what we have. This is what we're aiming for. So I'm going to disassemble this and we will start from scratch. So first thing that you want to do is to create a big S in the rope. And this is the size of these two bends right here are going to be based on how much slack you want to take out of your rope. So in this case, you're really going to be adding up this side to get the distance that you want to remove out of that rope that you're trying to shorten. So you're going to need to leave some room though on both sides of tail so you can tie a loop. So I'm going to start with this side, with the left side first. So what I'm going to do is to create a loop in the tail. Let's do this the other way. I'm going to put a loop in the tail. Now the tail must be on top of the loop. That's very important. So the tail is on top of the loop. I'm just going to take this bite of rope right here and put it through that loop from the top down, and then cinch up that first loop I created a little bit. Now we're not really securing this tightly. We just want to get it around there secure enough, and then we'll dress it at the end. And I'm going to come over to this side and do the exact same thing. I'm going to tie or put a loop in the rope, and it's important that the tail end is on top of the loop. Then I'm going to take this bite and I'm going to pass it through the top of that loop and then just put some tension on it. And then finally, to dress this knot, I'm just going to take both ends in each hand and pull, and there is a sheepshank. Now, this knot will hold relatively well if there is no intermittent loading. In other words, if it has constant tension, it'll hold pretty well. But if you're in a situation where you have a load that's bouncing around, you can see already as I loosen the tension that I get a lot of extra space in here, and it's possible that these loops could slip out. That's what makes it not really a great knot. But again, if you don't have a lot of tension, but you do need some constant tension, certainly enough to hold the loops, then it will work. Now another option that you have is to figure out what it would take to prevent these loops here from sliding through those loops, because if that didn't happen, then it would be much more secure. So one thing you could do, for example, if you had a small piece of accessory cord, is just to tie it off to that end. I'm just going to tie a double overhand knot. Now we have this loop tied off. Now it's much more secure. We know that this end is not going to end up getting sucked through this loop because this end has the tension on it. And if you did the same thing to the other side, you would really have a much more stable loop and be able to shorten up a piece of rope. So it's pretty basic. What you just want to keep in mind, however, as far as the technique, there are 2 points which Let's review those really quickly. So shorten up your rope as you want it. Create an S pattern so you have a bend in the rope here and a bend in the rope here. And the loop that you create on both sides when you do this, the tail end is going to be on top of the loop. And you'll always put that bite end down through the top. Same thing on the other side. Create a loop, make sure that the tail end is on top, feed this bite down through, cinch them up and pull, and there's your sheep shank.